I'm Rachel McLeod. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And today I'm going to be talking with you about 3 ways to turn a downward spiral into gold. And I'm talking about this because downward spirals happen and they happen. And I find them fabulous. When my clients go into a downward spiral, I know that this is going to lead to some pretty huge growth, and what if we do it right, we're not going to face the same problem ever again. Because there's always a reason for a downward spiral. And if you know what you're looking for, you can turn it into gold every time, anytime, and really come out of it strong. And that's awesome. But it's not fun to be in a downward spiral, and it's very scary. A lot of your own alarms are going to be going off. There's so many emotions that come up in a downward spiral, and that's difficult to manage. Humans don't typically have problems with our problems. We have problems with how we feel about our problems. And that's really one of the biggest, best kept secrets in the world, is that what I just said. And that's my quote. So you feel free to write that down. But but it's true. And why we know that, some of the things we know that that's true that point to it, is that we can logic our way around stuff and still stay stuck, right? It is not there that we're having the problem. We're having the problem with the feelings we're having. And if you're in a downward spiral, they're all coming out and you can't seem to catch a break, and they just take you down, 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 down. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about some of the ways that we can get into it, just so I can really help you understand what's a downward spiral. You may already know what a downward spiral is. If you want to put in the notes right here about what a downward spiral is, you go ahead and do that. I'll read them and we can be like, yeah, okay. And we could talk about any of the comments, questions. Go ahead and post them in here. Even if you're catching the replay, go ahead and do that, because we'll all get them, and we'll just carry this conversation on. But I find that downward spirals happen. They happen to the best of us, and like I said, they are for our highest good. You know, how people get into a downward spiral is, there are so many ways. There are so many downward spirals opportunities, but some of the top ways are that we start asking endless looping questions. Like some of our favorite, if you've got anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, is what if? What if this happens? What if that happens, right? There's no end to that. You can play the what if game for a really long time. Many people will play this for an entire lifetime. And it's usually combined with the skill of catastrophizing. And so you're like, well, what if this horrible thing happens? Okay, well, if, then I'm going to do this awesome thing. But then what happens if this horrible thing happens? And it just starts going downward, especially because our imagination is one of the things we create with, and our brain doesn't know the difference between us imagining things in detail or us actually living things out. And so if you are doing the what ifs and you are imagining catastrophe, your body is experiencing catastrophe. You are doing all of the hormone, all of the chemical work. You are doing all of that stuff for catastrophe. So you have lived out catastrophes thousands, millions of times, and so has your body. And this is one of the reasons why, if you've got trauma, depression, or traumatic stress, that you're exhausted. This is exhausting work, and your body's run down. I mean, there's just so much going on there. And then when that happens, then we have to use all these coping strategies and mechanisms to keep it going and stay afloat. The what if is an endless looping question. What's wrong with me? That will lead you to a downward spiral pretty quickly, because you're engaging one of the most powerful piece of machinery in the world, which is your brain and its problem-solving abilities, and it does that based on questions. And once you put a question into its awareness, it will go hunt it for you. Okay, I'm going to go solve that problem, and it will tear things up. That's what it does. It tears things into little bitty pieces. And if you got problems, you want it to get on those problems because it will start breaking those down and tearing them down. Problem is that if you say, what's wrong with me, you're the problem. So now your brain is tearing down you, right? And this will take you to a downward spiral because now your brain's going all around your inner world, really looking and seeing what's wrong with you. And guess what? It'll grab stuff that may or may not be wrong with you and say, here, what about this? What about this? Oh, look what I found. And it may not even be wrong with you, but it comes with that. Is this what's wrong with me? Maybe this is what's wrong with me, right? Endless loop. But like I said, if you've got problems, you want to move it onto the problem and not onto yourself. But that's you have to do that with some intention. Another endless looping question that will lead you to a downward spiral is, why me? This never ends. You can apply this question to everything, right? And that happens, right? All day, every day. Yes, you're right. And so this question, why me, can really take you down deep. Now, the truth about these questions is many of them need to be answered. But when you're in a downward spiral, things are moving so fast that you really can't. And it's just one emotion after another, after another, after another. And pretty soon you're pretty disoriented and you can't tell which end is up because things are moving so fast and they're spinning so fast. And this is a really tricky place to be in, because this is where people start using drugs and alcohol, and they start using food, and they start gaining all their weight back, or this is where relapse happens, whether it's mental relapse, emotional relapse, physical relapse. This is where it happens. And this is really hard because that just compounds the feelings of failure, the feelings of I've everything all the steps forward I made, I went backwards. That is never true in a downward spiral. Yes, you may have gained the weight back. Yes, you may have started drinking again. Yes, but if you're doing this work right and you're doing your inner work, you cannot undo the inner work that you've done. All the inner healing you get to keep. However, in a downward spiral, it's like your brain says, well, look at all the problems at once, that we haven't done. And that's really center stage for that. And so there it is. Rebecca says, internalizing anger. Yes, anger can really lead you, any of the big unresolved emotions can lead you straight down, which leads me to flashbacks can really take you down to a downward spiral, because once you have one, your brain is referencing, right? And it's referencing stuff that's it's in quarantine. Quarantine's like the place I call in the brain that is where your unresolved memories, thoughts, feelings, experiences, events are stored. And these ones are stored in their original form with all the pain that you experienced in the original moment. That's not how memories are supposed to be when they're fully processed. But if your processor could not get these in there, your survival system says, well, I'll help you out. We'll put this away. And it goes and takes it and it puts it under its jurisdiction, and no one's to touch this. But that's not how the brain works exactly. And your inner healer will go and reference it, or it'll go try to heal it, and it will open that pain up, right? And then guess what? Everything's linked. And so next thing you know, you've got 10 flashbacks going on. You've got, one flashback coming over and over and over again. And flashbacks can just be emotions, old emotions, as if they're happening. And you're like, why do I feel like this? Nothing is going on. That's a flashback. They can be visual. They can be auditory. You can be hearing the sounds, or there's so many ways flashbacks present themselves, but they can lead to downward spirals. Downward spirals is when you catch one bad trip and it's just like you hit the slide and you're going in. Oh, yes. Rebecca says the vault. I like that. And that's really what quarantine is. And it's not so secure as a vault, unfortunately, it's really fortunate. Because you can't let that stuff stay in there. It really has to heal. All of your amazing and awesome is in there. Any holes you feel, if you feel like you can't validate yourself, it's because of what's in here. Like you can't get that validation to turn on yourself. You have to continually go get other people to meet this need. It's because your validation is in there. If you can't get your self-esteem going on, if you can't get your self-control, if you can't get your self-comfort, it's because of what's in the vault. right? It's what's in quarantine every single time. And that's why there's so many people that say, I'm never going in there. And I'm like, no, don't do it. Like, get in there, get your stuff. But I understand you've got to do it in a way that's not painful. It doesn't shut you down and doesn't kick your butt again, right? Because that was hard the first time. So you think about going back in there again, and it's very, very scary. But really, it has to be done easily. It has to be done right, and it has to be done at the right pace for you. Right? And guess what? Some people don't go in there because they're going to turn into bitches. They're going to go into bitch mode and they're not going to come out. Yes, you are. You're going to do that. And guess what? You can't be, so many of us are, irritability is some of this, right? Irritability, angry outbursts, shame, processing that, there's ways to get through this stuff well. Right? There's ways to get through this stuff in ways that are not overwhelming to you or your family members or you, and that create more shame for you. And so don't let that be an obstacle. I've got videos on that. Watch them. But stay with me here because we're going to keep talking about that downward spiral. But Rebecca talks about increments, right? Tiny increments. Sometimes you would be surprised at what the brain can do. I like to think of it more strategic as opposed to measurements, just because people that I think I would judge as not being able to do much work can overhaul their stuff powerfully and quickly. Other people that I think are going to be fast, sometimes they're not, right? Some people that can tolerate a lot, every once in a while they'll hit a patch where they can only tolerate a little bit at a time. Some people that have so much going on, they can get in there and just go, 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 go. It's pretty amazing. And so you can think about it in increments or layers or things like that. But I don't want to give you the impression of slow. Okay, because of the fact that the organ that we're working with, the brain, and its healing abilities it's electrical. It's an electrical system. And this means that it's moving at electrical speed. When you get this work right, it just happens quickly. I seriously watch this, we'll be working for 2-3 minutes, maybe sometimes less, and all of a sudden it's moving. And once you know what you're looking for, right, you're looking for movement in the subconscious mind, the survival center, conscious level, and behavior level, you start noticing movement in any of those things, you're off and running. And then you just keep at it, and the next thing you know, there's so much work that's done. And then the brain will keep working unconsciously, subconsciously along the way. So yes, you can think of this in tiny increments, but I wouldn't even say tiny. Okay, because this is the brain is so powerful. And if you've been in a paradigm of talk therapy where you're using where you're focusing on your conscious mind, your thinking center, that's slow. That is tiny increments. But if you get your survival center and you start working with interventions that are targeting that part of the brain, it will move out of the way for your inner healer to go and kick some butt at electric speed. And that is why I stopped doing cognitive therapies and thinking therapies and started working with the survival system, because then powerful transformations occur. And over and over and over again. And the brain really does the work it wants to do, which leads me into to start here, the ways that the downward spiral can turn into gold. Okay, 3 ways. We're going to step a little bit closer to that. I'm going to tell you, I want to pull out a couple of beliefs I have and the beliefs that are out there in the world, just to help you understand that if you've had downward spirals, you may be avoiding them like the plague. And I get you. However, I want to shift your thinking about these so that you have a new thought, especially if you're in a downward spiral right now. Okay. And I speak as somebody who helps people with this. And I speak from somebody who just came out of a 5-month spiral. Okay. So, and I still love them. So, but let's talk about this. So some beliefs. Everything is for my highest good. I believe that. And as a result of that belief, That's how I approach things. I approach these downward spirals as for my highest good, and guess what? They are self-fulfilling prophecies, right? That's what beliefs are. That's the power of the subconscious mind that you can intentionally activate. So borrow some of these. So if you're in a downward spiral, you can get, like, these are floaties, right? These, if you're going down the drain, get you some floaties and get them on, okay? All things work for the good. That's another really great belief. You're here for a reason. You're in this moment of downward spiral for a reason. Or maybe you are pre-downward spiral, or maybe you are about to be spit out of a downward spiral. But wherever you are in your journey, you are right here for a very specific reason. You got to figure that out and turn it into gold. Okay. The last one I have is there's a time for everything under the sun. Okay. And even relapse and even a downward spiral. Okay, so if you've got those types of things going on, grab a hold of one of these beliefs. And also I want you to wrap your mind around that so that you are ready for, let's turn downward spirals into gold. Okay, first thing that happens with a downward spiral is not gold, right? You usually sit there and freak out and fight it. You're like, no, I'm not going back. I'm not going down there. No, and you will do everything and anything not to go into the spiral and not to spiraling. Been there, done that. I'm not even guaranteeing I won't do that again. So I just want you guys to understand this is it. And I will tell you that even that process for me was gold, right? Because I just was going to muscle my way out of this. I was going to willpower my way out of this, even though I know that doesn't work, right? But we're the survival center, right? You're going to use all the things when you got to survive, because we're dying here. We're going down. Bad things, right? So the survival mode is on. And so what happened with me is I spent about 2 months fighting it. And those were miserable months. But what was good was I exhausted myself, and I came to a place where, like, okay, look, surrender into this, and let's trust. And maybe there's more going on here than just you. There was some subconscious stuff there about I have to do it all myself, right? Like, what woman doesn't need to have that one, cracked wide open. And several other things, right? And so even in the fight, you're not losing, but it's not fabulous, right? And so, but you got to do it, especially if you're a strong-willed human. And if you're one of those people that just run your head into obstacles, like myself. Okay, if you're one of those people, then this part of the battle is actually going to be helpful for you, even though it's going to be miserable. Okay, it gets better when you get into the second phase, where you're going to relax. It's like if you're in the ocean, and they say if you're caught in the ocean and you're struggling in there, relax. It will lift you up and you'll eventually start floating. That's hard to believe, right? Because it's like you're fighting for your life, whatever. But that's what they say. And really in this place, it's a really good place to be, because there's no resistance. You're not resisting it. This goes against your survival center, your survival mode, because it wants you to panic and flee and fight and faint and sleep, right? And it's hard to go with it. I encourage my clients to go with it. If you're going to be put to sleep, go to sleep. If you're going to eat the house down, eat the house down. I know that's terrible. Don't click off yet, because you're mad at me for saying that. If you're smoking marijuana, do your thing, right? And relax, because we need you to shift out of the limbic state and into a survival state, right? And if you start panicking and like, oh my God, I'm eating even more. Oh my gosh, I'm smoking even more. Oh my gosh, like you're not, like we can't get this part of the brain turned on. And that's your inner healer. We need that part. And so you got to relax into this. And we got to turn those sirens off, so that we can use that part of your brain for the healing work we're about to do, because we're about to turn some stuff to gold. Okay. during these times, right, you're looking for support. This is when you're going to look for your tools. This is when you get to skill build. This is when you get training. This is when you get to work directly with your survival center. And this is a time for self-care. Self-care, this is when you want to work with your body, because your survival system only cares about your body. It doesn't care about, you can think your way through this. You can read all the articles during this time. You are not helping the situation, because you need to calm down and you need to relax. And the tools that you find need to be helping you with that. And so, and those ones are actually very, very quick and very easy to use and simple to learn. And they work very powerfully with your survival center. And then you don't have to use food and marijuana and all these things to survive, right? But if you don't have those tools, then you got to do what you got to do. And that's frustrating. So get the tools, okay? And the tools I really like are emotional freedom techniques, thought-filled therapy, energy medicine. I really like Eden energy medicine, EMDR. You can learn this for yourself. And there's a couple of other ones out there. But these are ones that you're going to want to learn how to use yourself, because you need this wherever your brain is struggling, not just in a therapist's office. And that's one of the reasons why it takes people so long to heal, is because they don't learn the tools themselves. And so then you're on a therapist's timeline. And, so that means you're going into weekly sessions, or sessions every other week, or sessions every month, if you're moving. And if you're on the month thing, you're probably not even doing the right strategies and the interventions, and your brain is not getting the support that it needs. And so these are tools you want to get for yourself. These are some of the most powerful tools we have available to us right now in the country. And especially emotional freedom techniques doesn't have any negative side effects. And it's easy to learn. And you will need more deeper strategies, but you can get it and start practicing. Anyway, that's my public service announcement. But regardless, you've got to get in here and do some pretty intense work. And you got to get that. You got to get your thinking center to turn back on. And that means that this part of the brain chills out, right? And so that you got to do what you got to do there. The second thing, and so once you get your inner healer back on and you're starting to use your tools now what you want to do is you want to process. At this point, if your thinking center is turned on, you are able to start looking around in the spiral. Now, let me back up for one moment, because I want to teach you something. This is what I call the healing stance. And the healing stance, you are healing anytime you can be 1 foot in the problem and 1 foot out of the problem. If you can be 1 foot in, I'm having flashbacks, and 1 foot out. Oh, I remember this flashback. This is, this is where I feel it in my body. This is pretty intense. It's not very intense. Oh, that was a big wave, right? You're observing it. If you can be in this stance, you are in a healing stance, and good things are happening. What happens is that things will happen, emotional flashbacks, like flashbacks, big emotions, big waves, things like that will come up, and they'll pull you 2 feet in, and now you are all the way in to this thing, and it's just swirling you around, right? And this is where it's really re-traumatizing, and you have no control over it. And this is not healing. You are not doing a healing thing. And this happens frequently in talk therapy. And this also can happen during EMDR. This is why EMDR is not a good fit for everyone, because some people cannot tolerate opening a memory and going in. They will get sucked 2 feet into it, and it's more traumatizing. And then they're like, I am never doing that again. And they shouldn't do it again for a really long time, but you can do it in the future. Also, what happens is if we get 2 feet in, or we're afraid we're going to get 2 feet in and get re-traumatized and have an overwhelming amount of emotion, we're going to say, oh, I'm taking 2 feet out. And this is when we dissociate and we distract. And this is a survival strategy, and there's nothing wrong with it. You just need to know that you're not in a healing stance. There's not healing going on when you're in this moment. You are just fleeing to live another day, and that's a great strategy, right? Because we're in this for the war, and it's okay to get your butt kicked in a battle, and because we're in this for the whole thing, right? So, but really where we want to get is 1 foot in, 1 foot out. because this is where it's at. Now, the whole point of relaxing is because when you get in a downward spiral, you're freaking out and you're 2 feet in, right? And you're 2 feet in there and you're not, and this isn't very fun and you're fighting it and it's just tossing you around. You're getting tossed, right? And you don't know what end is up and you're disoriented. And then, if we can get you to relax, all of a sudden you take 1 foot out and you're like, yeah, oh, I am in a downward spiral. Look at me. And you can start observing it. And here it's like your inner healer gets to open its eyes wide open and start looking for what's going on. And this is where you can start processing what's happening. You can start putting these big emotions into the processor, right? So the processor is kind of like this big wood chipper, right? And you grab a problem and you put it through the wood chipper, right? And that's what your inner healer is. It's this big problem wood chipper, right? And then it just keeps processing it and it hooks stuff up, it keeps stuff, and then it's like, I'm getting rid of this, I don't need this. And that's usually pain. And so it'll take something that's really painful, like painful things, I'm not going to name any because I don't want to trigger anybody, but and it will take it through the wood chipper and it will chip out and discard all the emotional pain so that when it gets done, it's just good stuff. And then it keeps going through your brain and it hooks it up and it fills in all the neural pathways that it wants to. It has its own wisdom because it goes in there and it's like it has all these little workers, I'm sure. And they say, oh, this goes over here, this goes over here. Oh, this is a self-confidence piece. Go put it in the self-confidence pile. And it starts sorting and hooking up. It starts doing the hookup. And it does this automatically. And that's the gold. But you got to have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and you've got to be using your tools. And that's when and then you're rocking and you're processing. You're helping your processor actually process stuff, and it will finally resolve stuff that it's never been able to process before. Okay. And instead of going around loop and loop and loop and loop, all of a sudden it'll just stop and be like, oh, and it will finally go in. Done. I'm working with a new client right now. She just started, and downward spirals are her thing. And she, was very skeptical, but she's like, I've just tried everything. And so I'm doing this. So, but it was really cute. She said her husband was like, she started spiraling and she used the tools and he's like, you stopped spiraling. I was like, yes, that's how it's supposed to be, right? Can get some control over this, be able to become empowered, to be able to do the work your brain needs to do. It's not supposed to spiral like that. Like spirals are a sign that something's not quite right, that there's something in your mental world that's sloped downwards, right? And that's not how it's supposed to be. And guess what? That happens. We all have them. But when we go on them, that's where we get to grab them and really process them. And really, we can really flip them and turn them into upward spirals. It's awesome. It's beautiful because, when your brain is set up that everything leads down, that sucks. And that's a real thing. That's part of having an anxiety, depression, or trauma disorder. Is that things just you slip on like a little banana peel in your bread and in your brain and just down, and you don't know when you're going to come out, and it's very, very painful, and you have so much loss of control. But when you can get in that healing stance and you get your eyes wide open, you're looking around, seeing what's going on, now you can take those same downward spirals and get them and flip them upside down. And so that they are spiraling upwards. And that's nice when you get in your brain and you hit something that takes you up. That's awesome. And you can put those in there, and that's part of reprogramming. And that's how we get stuff down at the subconscious level. That's what's going on in there. That's where you can really put beautiful upward spirals in there that you can launch off of and do it on autopilot. And that's when you get to relax. And that's when you get to be not afraid that you're gonna gain all the weight back. And you're gonna, like, pretty soon you're gonna have built in so many upward spirals that you're just gonna catch them and you're gonna keep soaring. So yes, they're downward ones, but hey, I put like, I've got 100 upward spirals in there. I'm gonna catch one eventually, right? And that builds a lot of confidence. And it feels good, and you can trust it because you watch yourself get spit out the top from that last spiral that you put up there, the upward one. Let's see. Okay, so when you get there, how you turn this into gold is you process it. And then once you get it through your processor, now you're also, right, you've seen it, you understand it, and now you master it. you get to finish this up. You get to build on it. You get to add to it. You get to, that's that upward ramp. And you get to make it as big as you want. Sometimes, let me see, mastering, things like self-doubt. Like, this is where you master big ones. Self-doubt, maybe there's some trigger that just triggers a massive amount of self-doubt that just sends you down into the pits, right? But after you've got it processed, now your brain and you can help this out dramatically. And you get to go in there and master it. You get to amp up the work that's done. Like, your brain will go in there and build a slant, a slope, an upward slope, but you get to go and you get to say, okay, let's put it right here and let's amp it up a little bit and go, and you get to do that work. And when you know how to do that work for yourself, there's no limit. You're not limited by anyone. Anytime you need an upward spiral, you can put it in yourself. And anytime you're ready to master a skill, you can master it. For instance, I just got one. Okay, many people are have a phobia of public speaking, right? And if you hit any place in your brain, a public speaking brain problem, it can take you on a downward spiral, right? Because you're like, oh my gosh, and this makes people drop out of classes, not be able to finish, totally go into a state of freeze in classes, and drop out, right? But let's say you're going down there and now you can open your eyes and you're in processing mode and you process, and now you're like, it spits you out and you're good, right? Now you no longer have a public speaking phobia, but now you get to build public speaking skills, and now you get to master public speaking, and now it's within your grasp, it's in your thinking center, and you get to master it. So many skills like that. So many opportunities like that. And that's really when it is awesome. That's really when you get full control of these things, and the sky's the limit. Once you learn how to work with all these emotions, once you learn how to take a downward spiral and get gold, you are rocking. And what's fabulous about a downward spiral is it takes you deep. It's like, that doesn't sound fabulous, but it is, because it's, a lot of times we will do all of this work, myself included, and we'll go deep, right? And I will go deep. I have strategies that will take you to the origin of stuff all the time, anytime, and on command, but not command, just instantly, right? That threw me, because it makes it sound like I'm doing some hypnosis. I'm not. I don't know. I've never taken a hypnosis class ever. I might need to do that so that I know what's really going on there. But because I only know gossip at this point, gossip about hypnosis. Anyway, I'm cracking myself up. But when you go on a downward spiral, you are going into the depths, and there is deep gold in there. I don't like to create downward spirals, but if we're going to spiral, we're going to get it all. We're going to get all the gold that is down there, and anything that's ready to come out and come up and heal, absolutely going to do that. So, and even if you're doing, everybody has these things, so you might as well master it. Let's see. I think that's all I've got, really. So I really wanted you to see that downward spirals are a really beautiful opportunity. They are powerful opportunities. They have the power to turn your life inside out in the most positive way. I feel like just having graduated from my last downward spiral, which I brought on myself by I was working towards some really big goals and dreams that you will be seeing me accomplish here in the future. And but it was basically it was like, okay, how you've got things organized in here, we need to like create some space here, and we need to flip this upside down, shake it out, and get all the gunk out in there that you haven't been able to reach, or that was good for the other goals but it's not good for this one. And so now, okay, flip it back upside down, now there's an empty crater in there, and what are you going to do with that? And this was phenomenal. I can't tell you how light I feel. I can't tell you how there is an identity that I've been growing into, and I was experiencing so much sabotage as a result of it. And I was like, what the heck? That's not supposed to happen to me. But But that's what happens to everybody, is that when you grow, you have it to have it, you go on an internal reorganization, and that's good, right? It really is hugely powerful. And so that's what I'm wanting you to see. That's what I'm wanting you to think about. If you're not supposed to spend every day in a downward spiral. You're not supposed to spend months and months and years in a downward spiral, right? I really hadn't. I hadn't been in a downward spiral for a very long time. I think it was like 10 years that it had been. And so I was overdue for a big one. And I had not tried to grow as much as I had tried to grow in those 10 years. And so, and let me tell you what, I'm a fighter, and I fought that thing for 3 months, and then I downward spiraled for about 1, and then came on up. And had I not fought, maybe it would have been better, but my process. So anyways, I want you to be looking at these as opportunities. I want you to change your ideas about these. I want you to see these as healing opportunities, because your brain is basically telling you, right here's the problem. And if you can solve that problem, you get a whole transformation out of it. Okay. So anyways, I hope this inspired you. It's not fun to talk about downward spirals usually, but I can tell you that it was exactly what I needed. And every time I have a client that goes through one, it's exactly what they need. I've got one client, she is a powerful healer, energy practitioner. She is phenomenal. And she has been getting hammered. And I'm telling you, like this, and we just got her out of it about 2 weeks ago, and after a couple sessions, and she had been working, and I was just like, oh no, this is big for you. This is part of you coming into all your power and coming into more power than she called it upon herself. She said she wanted to grow, same as me, right? We wanted to grow, we wanted to reach these goals, and it's like, okay, let me help you. And out comes everything. So embrace these, lean into these. These aren't things to make you run away in fear, stay in hiding, or be ashamed of. This is part of your empowerment. This is part of you recovering your inner goddess, recovering your inner authentic self. This is magical. I cannot say that enough. And so I just want you to look at those differently. And the more you embrace them, which is the easier they are. Okay, I'm taking notes for my next one, 10 years from now. Not to fight so much. And I think I really resolved that, because I really was, anyway, I'm so fascinated. I'll talk about my inner world forever, but moving on along. I'm going to let you off because we've been here for a while. If this is something that you want to talk with me about, I invite you to grab a spot on my calendar. This is for you if you are someone who is coachable, if you are someone who is committed to your inner healing, to stepping into your full potential in your life, in your love, and in your impact. And this is for you if you are someone who is resourceful, right? Because there's always a challenge, whether it's time, money, energy, babysitters. And babysitters aren't an issue with me because bring the babies. If this is calling you, and you're that kind of person, and that you're ready for something empowering like this, like to learn how to create any transformation within yourself that you want, go ahead and grab a spot on my calendar by going to rachelmcleod.com/call, and I will spend an hour with you. This is a free service that I offer because I want you to get where you want to go. And if I can help you with that, I will absolutely show you how. If not, that's okay too. I want to make sure you're on your path. So I will take that time with you. I enjoy those times. You are not wasting my time. Oh, look, there's more comments. I'm going to read those. But yes, rachelmcleod.com/call. And yeah, and we'll talk. I'll call you at the time that you choose. Okay. So Yes, Rebecca says, so don't be so controlling. Yes, that's part of it. But you know, you can say, don't be so controlling, right? And I can say, don't be so controlling. But it's another thing to practice not being controlling. It's another thing to master that skill. And you know, and that's really what the best thing I got out of this was this. I just really got learning how to trust all of me, and learning how to trust my team, and that's the physical and non-physical team, right? God, all source, and my team around me. Learning how to grow in faith, right? And I'm not talking religious faith. I'm talking about the act of holding the vision and believing what you want, the dream, right? Being able to surrender more, being able to thrive and release patterns of struggle and striving. That was awesome. I've noted huge change there. I found a little person in my head that was at the control wheel, because I do some visualization exercises as well. I really tailor these to individual people. And so for me, I am visual, and so I will visualize things like this. And so that works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. But I found in my brain here somebody that was running around like, you know, I got to look it out for everything. And it was like, dude, chill. And they don't, you know. And so I'm working with this part of me, this little vision that I have, and I finally get them to like sit on this little chair, you know, and just relax and put a little drink next to them, turn the sun on. In my vision, I turned the sun on, and I could feel them relaxing. And it was a level of hypervigilance I had not noticed before, right? And so I saw them relaxing, and then I saw somebody in my brain come up and like duct tape them there onto it. Like, you better sit there. And I was like, oh, that must be my adrenals. They're done with that. They don't want that part doing that anymore. But I've caught that part since then up and doing it again. And so, but now it's like I just grab hold of it and I bring it back to the chair. We have a conversation, and we're repatterning, we're retraining, right? And it's so not only am I getting the benefits, but I'm kind of having a little fun with that. And so, but that's part of the not being so controlling, you know? And yeah. We could go on and on there. And then Rebecca says, but what if you are told you are being controlling? You might be being controlling, you might not be. Everybody has a survival system, right? Everybody. And when we get there, we can go into fight, flight, freeze, or faint, right? And some people's fight looks like, I'm going to find the word, gaslighting. Right? It looks like gaslighting or distorting the picture. And so sometimes, and also projecting, right? So they're really the controlling one, but they're putting it on you because they are feeling that way. And then all of a sudden you're like, am I controlling? And so it's just important to process that, because your brain knows exactly what's going on with that. And if you can process the emotions around that and the memories around that and any beliefs around that, then you kind of take this accusation and kind of clean it up a little bit, and your brain sees exactly what it is, and it just starts problem solving around it, rewiring it differently, and it really takes away the triggers, so that you get your brain looks at it and comes to its own understanding, and then they'll say it again the next time, it won't activate anything there, and you're like, okay, you know, I already worked that out, and you know, so next, what's now going on in the conversation? You know, as opposed to being, how could you say that to me? No, you're the controlling one. No, right? That we do, and it doesn't lead anywhere, right? And so, or it's gaslighting, and it has us like, you know, we were talking about a problem, but now we're talking about, oh, maybe I am being controlling. And we go back and we take our eyes off the problem, and we start putting our eyes on ourselves. Maybe I'm the problem. And now the most powerful piece of equipment is now on you and is tearing you up. And the problem is going unresolved, which is a strategy of power and control that people subconsciously and unconsciously and consciously use to maintain power and control. So that one, Rebecca, I would say, if you're not getting a clear picture on that, that means your brain hasn't worked through it yet, and get the support you need to do that. because you don't want to, that's stuff that needs to be resolved so that you can stay grounded and centered, right? And you can really come at that relationship in a place of power, not that because you need to be empowered. Like, humans should not be without power. That's not how we're created. We are very powerful, but when we don't have power, we start taking power from other people. We don't share power. We feel threatened by other people's power, but when we have our own power, we don't. We can allow other people to have power. We know we can't take anybody's power. We don't want to take anybody's power. There are some people that will hand you their power. It's a real thing, but we don't feel the need to pick it up because we have our own. We can generate as much as we want. And then we start attracting similar people. And we start attracting, even in our partners, we create shifts there so that that person that is able to share power, now we're relating with that. Right? We're magnetized to each other, right? It's like if you're in a negative, now you get, I don't know how that works, the math of that. But it's like once you do a flip, the other person has to flip too. Otherwise it doesn't match, right? And then they kind of repel. And then usually one will switch or they'll repel out. Right? And so this is a really great way to get predators, violators out of your life, is because they won't switch and they will just repel. And so if you're somebody, and I know that there's many women that's like, oh my gosh, I am a magnet to predators. Yes, you actually are. And the fastest way to get out of that is to, whatever in your inner world is that magnet attracting, is to flip it. And you can absolutely do that. And it's very powerful. And all of a sudden these people are repelled, and they're repelled like before they cause damage in your world, before they get in, So I have so much to say about that, but I'll save it for another time. I'm going to get off. I adore you all, and we'll talk soon. Let me make sure I didn't miss any. Okay. Good night. If you have any questions, comments, go ahead and post them. I will be watching, and yeah. And if you're in a downward spiral and you want me to take a look at that, go ahead and private message me or DM me. I don't know the lingo. I should figure that out. But anyway, PM me, DM me. We'll talk about it. If this is something you want to be a little bit more proactive with and really get a plan, go ahead and book a call with me, again, by going to rachelmcleod.com/call. And otherwise, I will see you around, either in the Facebook groups that I host or right here in my Facebook page. Okay? Talk to you later. Bye.